Oh, you got people here already. Oh, have you enjoyed my backdrop? Right, who we got? Hey, look who we got. Getting used to technology, ladies. So I was going to play some music, but I don't think I would appreciate my music choices. I might do anyway. Look at me. This is, somebody who hasn't seen my lives joining. This has been my backdrop. Appreciate my back. Let's get rid of that. Let's make it look tidier than it actually is. It looks like I've had a fake screen put up. This isn't. This is actually, it's in the teens. Hey, Sage. We have got a chat box open. Bear with, because this is new technology for me. So we all know how well that goes. I have a worrying feeling I've been called Sam Hanny as well. Look, I am Sam Hanny. Not. I might actually play some music while we're waiting, ladies. I assume it'll all be ladies tonight. Ooh, I have to take some requests. Where's the chat box on this bad boy? Q&A. You can ask me questions as we go along, guys. By the way, Priya, Pooja, Hafsa, Angela, Sej, hola. Who got a hand up? Sej, you put your hand up already. Hands up. Is that even any musical choices that we're asking for? I really the way you guys can talk to me. Oh, Kushbu's got a hand up. I'm not gonna allow people to talk. Let me talk. Come on, look, come on. Get your hands down. Get your hands down. You can put your hands up when I'll probably have moments when I ask you to put your hands up. Do you know what I feel like, ladies? I feel a bit of Faithless. I've not listened to Faithless for ages. Ooh. No, ooh. Probably won't hear this. What the hell? Just while I'm waiting. Is exactly 4:15. And then when we get going, I will share with you the delights of the monthly cycle. Let's just be for me, this music. Oh, Mitt's here. Oh, they're coming in. Coming in. Hello, everyone. Evening. Oh, we got a new one. Who do we just get jumping in there? Nosh. Nosh is in. Notion is in. Oh, there's a box. Ah, look. I worked it out. Go me. Look at me. I just worked out and saw the chat box, guys. Hello there. Hey, Layla. Hey, Zed. I do hope there's emojis up in this. Let's endeavour to get through this without me swearing. Who knows? Could or could not happen. So I just managed to find some emojis. Look at that. Wait, do you think I can? Fail. Right, I'm literally going to give it a couple of minutes to get some people jumping in. We've got 12 people. 12 ladies. Let's call us what we are. Ladies. So I'll keep the chat box open, guys. So if you want to ask me questions, I can answer them for you. Sage, what are you sending me now? I can't even see what that is. That looks, whatever it is, that looks amazing. Bit of classic Faithless for me. See, all this time I've had to listen to Sam stuff, and now I get the opportunity. Freedom! I'm literally gonna give it 2 minutes for the end of this. I know you can hear this, but what is she listening to? Oh no, it's a very long mix. Probably not that. You'll be here for an hour listening to this. Kajal Patel is here. Hey, Kajal. Daksha Chauhan is here. She's raising her hand saying, hey. Hey there. Hey there. Who else has got their hand up? Oh, Kajal's saying hi. Hey. Oh, warming it. Getting a hot flush. Not really. Correct. That'd be ironic, wouldn't it? Oh, Got some more coming in. Joe Sweeney's here. This is why you leave it for a little bit longer. Joe, it's because I know you're eating eggs and that's why you're late. Oh, 14. Welcome, 40 people. Excellent. If I only did the whole 8 minutes of this mix, what do you think? Yeah. Right, so the chat box is open to say hi. So hello, hello. You got 15. Look at this is so great. We could have if only you could all speak to me at the same time, we could have one mass Zoom party. Bob Taylor is here. Hey, Bob Taylor. Hi. Hey, Mitt. Hi. This is an 8 minute mix. I won't subject you all to this. I am literally going to give it 60 seconds because I think 5 minutes late is long enough. You're more than 5 minutes late and I start talking about this stuff, you will be lost. Lost. Hey, Bob. Oh, nice to you too. 15 peoples. Sweet. Some of you guys, I'm not stealing. Jazz. This is bringing me back to my teens. Imagine having a nightmare dancing to this all the nights. You're at 15. I think we're going to be good at 15. I do believe. Right. Let me just fade out on Faithless. Slow fade out, Faithless. Right. Evening, ladies. Welcome to this live about periods. Let's just call it what it is. I solemnly swear not to make it through any part of this next section of your time without swearing. I intend to swear and say things. However, as a woman, and a woman has a period herself, I think I'm okay to say a lot of the things that might offend guys, or say things like blood clot, or I don't know, gushing and things like that. All the words that most guys are like, oh God. However, it's all part of the game, right? So what I'm going to do is just checking everybody else is diving on in. Oh, we got someone's arrived. Sangeeta. That's why you always leave it that 1 minute longer. Hi. Right. Now, this is where we hope. Okay, let's just take something. This is where we hope that Helen hasn't ruined technology, or Helen's doing something new with technology where something don't implode. Hopefully not. I mean, I did a little bit of a meltdown when I realised when I came into this, it looked entirely different to how I did the practice run. It's okay though. We're still good. Oh, somebody else. There's people still jumping in on this. I don't want to start. I don't want to go off too early. Right. Okay, let's start the presentation. She says, right. Hopefully you can all see this. Be really awkward if you can't. All right. Okay. Right. Give me a hands up if you can see this. Let's practice putting hands up. Oh, we got 3 up. This is good news. Something's happening. Yes. Hands up in the air. Fantastic. Well, we all know that button works now, which is great. So hands up is a great, there we go. Fantastic. Right. So thank God, Helen, technology is working. Yes, just for those jumping in late, the chat box is open for you to ask me questions and or hurl abuse, or disagree, or whatever you want. It's there for you. I may come back to the question if I'm a little bit open. I would prefer you put it in the chat box rather than questions and answers, because that's a different box that I don't have open right now, I'm going to be honest, and it will probably confuse me. You know how easily I am confused. So welcome to the menstruation cycle and yo in very big capitals. Why in big capitals? Because it is all about you as an individual. So no one woman shares the same. So before I get into this, let me pre-frame, say it from the top and I'll probably say it all the way through. This is going to be essentially an overview. It doesn't mean it's specific to every single woman, right? Because there's always, as we know, differences between all of us. And so when I say you in big capitals, I'm not being aggressive and shouting you in your face. What I'm saying is that actually There's differences between everyone, and part of this is just accepting that I'm going to go through some generalizations here. Yes, however, there's some outliers and everything. So if it doesn't apply to you, that is okay. So, why, you may ask, why am I doing this? So this is generally what people are like, what's happening? Why am I doing it? I'm doing it because with a lot of the women I've worked with over the last few months, and well, all the clients, all female clients actually, interestingly, and those coming to us have come in over the Revamp 28 for sure, have experienced or are currently experiencing some disruption to their cycle. Now, it stands to reason the best thing to do right now is to add some value and give you some tools and some knowledge that you can at least understand and use and implement in some of your, what might be happening to you right now. Understandably, there's a lot to cover in one session. Putting it mildly, there's only so many slides I can do to cover every element of this. And as I said, because everyone's an outlier and it's quite bespoke, it's impossible to cover every single scenario. All right. So if some of this is something you want to look into, or if you know somebody who actually has some issues, etc., then by all means, because you are all members or have been members, you can certainly refer them in. And come in on the pass, on a 28-day pass, and we can have a look at some of these things with them. Okay, so it's definitely an open option. Now, this was the I feel like, anybody put their hands up who recognizes the woman on the left? Anybody recognize Serge is like first in there, like, oh hey, I recognize the before picture. Yeah, that is well, if you could recognize the picture on the t-shirt, you'd be far ahead of me, because that t-shirt got warped into no belief. Amazing I could get into a Zara t-shirt at that point in time. So granted, this is just for those people who are joining who are not members. This is me. This is me on the left and me on the right. Hair's very different now. I mean, most people might be still freaking out who know me that I'm wearing a dress, which is also equally awkward. However, that is me on the left at coming on 90. I was over 90 kilos at that point. So I was about 91, 92 kilos at that point. Had a lot of disruption to my cycle. Had to go on the pill for some time to regulate my cycle. Yeah, Kush is like this. Wow, it's a dress. Kush didn't even look at the left-hand picture. She was focused on the handbaggy thing that was going on, right? She's like, what is she holding? A laptop? No, Kush. That is in fact a handbag. So what the heck? Yes, guys, that is me with a handbag and me at 92 kilos. So at 92 kilos, I had a hell of a lot of problems with my periods, quite heavy periods from recollection as well. And yeah, essentially I lost weight and started losing dresses, so my life changed. Never did wear a dress late after that, maybe once, but only the once. Yeah, it was an iPad. Yeah, it was that big. Kosha had to work out what was going on. What would be worse, big or small? So that's me. So what we're going to cover today. Now, let me also say some of this, right? Some of this is techie and geeky. Now, there's a lot of, later on, there's a lot of long words, and I'm not doing it to blow you out of the water. What I'm going to do is cover some stuff because I think it's important to at least have some knowledge, because knowledge is power, and how you choose to implement it. So just to say, I'm going to cover some areas, and some of it is like, oh, I didn't know that, and some of it's like, whoa, what does this all mean? Yeah, how did my boobs shrink advice? Do you know, Krish, that was the most expensive bra shopping expedition ever, especially at the time when I was shopping at Revissimo. Like a couple of months, that stuff racks up. It was an expensive situation. One, Krish, no, one is going to be what happened to my boobs. One is going to be why is it important to know your cycle? So why is it important to know your cycle? Two, what the trends in shouty voice that you expect to see through the month in, or couldn't spell all there, apologies. I knew it would take long. It wouldn't take long for something to go wrong. All aspects of life. Know your hormones and how they change your weight loss goals. Learn how to make your water trends help to understand fat loss, and how to track and manage your cycle. It's quite a lot, and there's a lot in it, right? Okay, so now I chose this picture because I absolutely love it. I think I saw it first time about 10 years ago, and it pretty much covers pretty much how I think I feel. I'm fine, I hate you, I love you, I want ice cream, come here, get away, oranges. So PMS, right, so premenstrual tension. Whilst I'm not going into that in quite a lot of depth, I did think it was quite a good idea to put some of that in, because firstly, that's pretty much how I behave. And I'm going to go into some reasons why that happens as well. So why know your cycle? I'm going to go into hormones. So how to understand your hormones in your cycle, how nutrition is impacted by your cycle, what happens with training during your cycle, and your month-end trends. Ta-da! So hormones. Right, hormones. Let's go through them. So we're going to go through how they communicate. Oh no, what have I done? Got too busy on the chat box. So how do they communicate? Oh no, can't. This chat box situation is killing me. I'm going to go through estrogen, progesterone, what to expect. So here we go first. Communication. Okay, so one of the first things we'll look at here is this little bad boy. Now, I know what that picture looks like, second one down. It isn't. We've got here is a downstream process, and this is what a lot of women don't understand. So they assume that when it comes to their cycle, that it's all about their ovaries. So it's all starting from their, from the lady garden areas, right? They believe that the reason why this is happening is coming from down up, but it's actually a downstream process. So your start position is actually in the brain, the hypothalamus. Now, that's the first long word. Essentially, there's a hormone released from the hypothalamus to the pituitary gland. And get this right. I should have had a drink for this. Not alcoholic, but something. Gonadotropin release hormone. It's the first of many, ladies, is released, right, from the brain down to the pituitary gland to start the process. And it's like a domino effect. So it's almost like a voice, right? So pituitary gland acts as a voice to release two other types of hormones, which I'll go into, FSH and LH, which you see here, which then go further down the chain to estrogen, progesterone. And most of us will know estrogen. Some of us will know progesterone. And not many of us will know the actual system in between. So actually how they work and how they relate to each other, or where the communication begins and ends. It's often always thought, as I said before, a down to up process, and the reality is it's not. You can see here we've got plus and minus, and that relates to negative feedback. So actually what happens is that estrogen and progesterone will also feed back up to the hypothalamus and turn up or turn down the release of the hormone. So it's actually a very clever system. It feeds back. It's like a constant loop. And that loop changes through the month and may dip and dive. And again, I'm going to say it for the second time. I'll probably have to keep saying this. It varies from woman to woman, how that is released, how frequently, how strong the voice is, to use that analogy, and how they react to it as well. So it's all a very, very complicated and it's a very clever system, I think. It says, so suppress and increase the release in the feedback loop. So it'll either increase or decrease. Right. Oh, right. So the first one I go through is FSH. So there's two. So FSH is the first hormone that's released in the first 2 weeks of your cycle. So in the start of your cycle, you've got your 7 to 14 days going through to 28 days, right? That most of us are kind of aware of and understand. So FSH is released in the first half, and is called that because it's a follicle stimulating hormone. Now, most of us will also know or believe, so let's just cover this off now in case anybody doesn't know, that the average cycle belief is 28 days, is in fact a myth. Some of you will know this, some of you will not. I'm going to cover it because some of you might go, that sounds like madness. The reality of the 28 days was created because one of the first companies who were making a pill in the 1970s could only get 28 pills to fit on the manufacturing packet. Hence where the myth came from, that we all believed that we're meant to be 28 days. It was all to do with the fact of how many pills they could get in a packet. So 28 days is what we're going to use as the average, but that isn't the quote unquote norm. Okay, that's just anything between, well, was it 24 to 32, I think it is. It's quite a long bracket. It's still considered to be okay for a woman. It doesn't have to be 28 days, and if you're early or late by a couple of days, that doesn't mean there's anything actually untoward going on. And as let's be honest, I think most of us experience some dysregularity, ooh, hello, that's the wrong word, to our cycles over the last few months. Okay, so it's actually, as long as it's within those kind of brackets, we're actually okay. So we see, if we're looking at the line here, which is the purple line, we see that it starts to peak kind of as we're getting into the mid, and that's because what it's doing is actually starting the stimulation for ovulation, right? So it's stimulating a follicle for ovulation. So we see it's the most dominant in that 7 to 14 days, peaking in the ovulation window, okay? It's normal, as I said, to have some fluctuations, and it's okay for it to be unpredictable, certainly in that first half. We basically see an elevation so that an ovary can be selected, right? So there's a selection of an ovary, follicle. Oh, there we go. There it is. Let's see it. I think many of us have seen this. Okay, so we see here the selection of the follicle on the left-hand side. It selects at least 6 to 12 through the process of the more stimulation of FSH. Between the first 7 days, we'll see the primary follicle start to develop. So this is this one here as it goes around the cycle, and we'll see that mature and develop as we go around. Okay, so that's that. So then we see FSH and estrogen. Okay, so we see that growth of the follicle with FSH. It's a mouthful, isn't it? I say it's going to get technical. As the follicle grows, we see an increase in the amount of estrogen, right? So see how this starts to dive up as well. The drop of the follicle stimulating hormone and the rise of estrogen signifies a selection of the follicle. So that means that the main follicle has been selected, and essentially the ovum has been selected as well. So estrogen continues to rise and grow the endometrial lining, so basically the bone lining, and that covers up to 10 to 14 days and signals the rise of mature follicles. So essentially all this first half is all about growth and maturity. So although we know that the first 2 weeks we feel fantastic and everything's good, that's because our bodies is doing something wholly natural and as it should in balance, and creating, as well, if different day and age, full preparation, right, to become pregnant. Now, this is a very nice, and yet I know slightly complicated box. We see here, we've got the ovarian cycle. So the growing follicle is what we've already covered. So you can see here, it's growing into ovulation. So we have the ovulation here. We have the first selection of the hormone FSH, demon, and we also have the increase of estrogen. So it's all matching, all coming up to ovulation. And here down the bottom, as I talked about, we've got the endometrial lining of your womb starting to develop and grow, and it all matches that first half. So the most dominant hormone we're seeing there in this section is estrogen in the first half, and it's all to do with growth, right? So all to do with growth and selection of the follicle that's going to grow into their ovulation for release, right? So it's all there for you. So this is just a summary of it. As that starts to grow, so as we see this growth down the bottom, so as it starts to grow here, we'll also see a production of more progesterone receptors, and that's your second hormone, right? So more of the receptors will be created, and that's preparing for the second half of the cycle. So we're getting ready now for the last 2 weeks of your cycle and how those hormones work, right? So luteinizing hormone, so the second half. So here again, we've got the purple line, and now we've got the blue line, which is the LH or luteinizing hormone, dominant in the second half, right? And dominant with another hormone with it, with that green line. Essentially, once it gets to a certain point, the ovarian wand shuts and ruptures luteinizing hormone, causing the follicular cells to turn into luteal cells. That is a lot of words. Basically, it means it releases, right? So the egg releases like that, and essentially, we have a feedback loop going back up to the chain. It's basically telling us we're ready. Again, we're going back to this. So here is where it kind of explodes. And then what's left turns into something called, get this, this is biology 101, corpus luteum, right? So corpus luteum, this yellow thing here, creates more progesterone, right? That's the second hormone again. So that goes back to estrogen, progesterone. Progesterone is created by the corpus luteum. And you have a little bit of estrogen as well, not so much. And it causes the actual cells now, or the endometrial lining, to multiply. So you've got your first half where it grows, and you've got your second half where it matures, right, and develops. Again, here we go back to this because we can see second half, we've got that increase of progesterone, and that's also to do with the increase of LH. So everything matches, it's in a very nice cycle. So everything kind of fluxes and flows and goes together. So it's a complete and utter symbiosis of all the hormones happening at the same time, right? So at this point, right, so far we've seen the growth of the follicle into the dominant follicle, which is here, the rupture and release of luteinizing hormone into the later part. So what happens next, you may ask? Well, it's okay, I will tell you. Post-ovulation, you have an increase of progesterone from the corpus luteum causing negative feedback. So when I talked about negative feedback, it's a little minus sign. So what that means is your progesterone levels down there will go back up to your brain and say, okay, shut it off now because you've done the first half of everything I need to do. Now let's turn down that voice. Let's shut down that domino effect and start to balance out essentially, because now we've grown everything, it's developed, I've released the egg, it's ready now, everything's in balance, and both reducing of both the LH and FSH secretion and increased progesterone, right? So essentially you're now at that stage in the latter half. So it means that there's a proliferating ready for ovum. So essentially everything is ready, the bed is made, all we need is the egg to be going into it, right? Essentially, it's always important to realize that you are going to have your progesterone and estrogen levels ideally want to be in the same shift with each other. So the peaks are the same. Progesterone must, in shouty voice, reach sustained levels to counterbalance and regulate estrogen. Essentially, if you get to 26 days and you is not pregnant, then progesterone drops, and in 2 days, menses, because being polite, you start bleeding. Okay, so 26 to 28. If that has not happened, you'll see that breakdown and shedding of the lining, and that's where you're having your period, and we go around all in full circle. Okay, so that, in many slides, is the cycle and the hormone interplay between the two things, right? So there's actually a lot more going on that we perhaps, or even you might have already realized before. Right, there's a lot of very technical things that work there. So I hope you're all still with me. Hands up if you're still with me. Is anybody still with me? Okay, we've got some hands. I've got some hands. I've got to work out how to get to the box where the hands are. I've lost the hands box. I got 8 hands raised though, so I'm glad with that. Okay, let's, where's the hands box guy? Oh, there we go. No, that's not the hands box. I've lost the hands box, but I saw some flow up, so we're good. One of the things I did want to go into, and I want to go into one of the hormones a little bit more in depth, is the one that I think a lot of women do talk to me about, and is estrogen levels, right? Because they do have a lot of interplay for a lot of women at different ages. And I've used this little picture here to give a really nice demonstration of what happens with estrogen hormone levels through the decades. Age 20, you can see we're starting to see a midline and increase at 30, 35. It's pretty much at its highest peak in terms of what you're producing. At 40, we're starting to see a little bit of drop off, and then into 50, 60, 70, 80, the drop off. Okay, now it's quite simple, easy way of explaining it and seeing how it kind of waxes and wanes a little bit. Now, what many of us don't actually realize is there are actually 3 types of estrogen, right? 1, 2, and 3. You've given my teeth in to pronounce these. I'm going to do it. Estrone, estradiol, estroil. Second, the second one is the primary one that we're talking about when we're thinking about reproduction. I'm actually going to go into all 3 of them because they do come into play based on parts of our life. And so actually based on participants here today, actually some of you will be actually experiencing one of these 3 at any given time anyway. So E1's primary menopause, E2 primary for reproduction, which is the main one we've been talking about, and E3 primarily through pregnancy. So again, we'll be looking at E2, so that middle one, through most of reproduction, and most of it's synthesized with a Z, American spelling, apologize, via the ovaries. And this is incredibly much. Now, I'm going to summarize this in simple English because it's very much a language thing. Essentially, your estrogen is produced through cholesterol. So it ends up with something called DHT and estrogen as a product of that process. So we essentially use cholesterol, so mainly low density lipids and a little bit of high density lipids to create. I'm really not going to go into this only because you guys are like, my mind is blown. Essentially, we create it through cholesterol. So again, I think a lot of women believe that the estrogen does come from the ovaries, but it's synthesized through cholesterol. So you do need to use in your body fat to do that. And this is a lot. Essentially, there's a lot chemically going on. We start from the top, go down. You do get created testosterone with estrogen, and we all have testosterone as well, ladies. That's part of this being included. And we have a lot, all three are created through each other as well. So E2 and E3 are also created through E1. We'll just skip over that. There's a lot to take in. So estrogen functions. They're like, why do I need to have it? Why is it such a big player in everything? So estrogen functions. As I said, it tells cells to grow, and it's lining after the period finishes. So it starts to rebuild that lining. So as I say, you go through a cycle, sheds the lining, so you have your period, and then comes back in at the beginning of the cycle again to tell that to grow again. It increases bone formations, which is why if anybody's had said to if you go through any menopause, etc., why sometimes that comes into play. Look, I had to add it in. No fun, right? Otherwise, let's just be honest. Vaginal lubrication, let's go for it. I said it. I said I was going to say some wordy stuff. That is it. Why have people started raising their hands? That's quite odd. I have no idea what happened then. There's people raising their hands. Everybody's like this. Yay! That was a simultaneous Mexican wave. What was that about? That might have just been an IT glitch. But yeah, no estrogen, no fun. Essentially, it's going to be quite difficult to get pregnant without that. Let's be honest. Maintains skin and blood vessels. Maintains female characteristics. Balances your lipids, which is no surprise. We just talked about where your cholesterol is actually used to synthesize. Promotes sleep quality. Very true. And yeah, estrogen functions, fantastic. So I'm going to go through these. I've got a few points on each to understand how each of them are. So E1, which talks about menopause. So smallest amount of the three, so you have the least of it. Synthesized through from, here we go, another word, androstenediol aromatase. Essentially, it's through another part of body fat. It's produced in the adrenals after ovulation produces C. So essentially, after menopause, so that's at least 12 months after you finish your last period, and can convert back to testosterone as well. E2, which is one we've been talking about the most, is a primary reproductive hormone, the growth element of the female cycle, which I hope you guys have started to understand. And 12 times more potent than E1. It packs a punch, this one. It's a bitey one, right? It's where we get most of our emotions from, let's say, and 80 times more potent than E3, right? So it's a very, very potent hormone. It plays havoc in different levels, right? And then E3, which I talked about, which is a very weaker version. It's synthesized from the other estrogens through the liver. Has a similar, it similarly has a growth, it has a similar structure to E2, but can't grow things basically, and produced during pregnancy by the placenta. So Hafsa, what about high progesterone levels? How do they affect your cycle? High progesterone. So in element, if we go back to, where can we go back to? So Hafsa, if we're looking, so Hafsa's, we can see the question from Hafsa. Hafsa's talking about high progesterone levels. How does that affect your cycle? Essentially, if you have the growth section, so when I talked about there should be a synthesis between the two, Hafsa, what you're looking for is you see the peak of the estrogen at first. You want an equal and levelish peak of progesterone in the second half because they are in balance. So we need both halves at both kind of proportions to assist in both halves of the cycle. Now, that doesn't always happen. So you may have a higher peak of estrogen, shall we say, which means there's been a hell of a lot of growth elements, which means that you may be experiencing heavy periods because you have had more estrogen. Likewise, if you have a heightened progesterone, theoretically, you'll be maturing the cells and not dropping off, which means, as I said earlier, if there is no insemination is the right word, basically, if you don't get pregnant, it would drop off. Now, if progesterone levels stayed high, theoretically, that would mean that your period would be delayed because essentially the progesterone levels are holding on to what's been built. So it keeps maturizing what has been built by the estrogen. So theoretically, you would have a later period, right? So you would be late on your period. Again, the thing is, this picture again is again for the normal, right? It's highly unlikely if we were all had our bloods done that all our bloods would look the same as this. It's highly unlikely. That would be one thing I would say has to be one of the most likely things. But again, I would say that would make the most sense in terms of if it was a higher progesterone level. I'm sure there's an easy way of doing this as well, but obviously I'm making this very hard for myself because that's what I do. Right. Oh, went too far. So low estrogen. So what if, and by the way, can I just make a point here? When I say low or high, when I go into this, by the way, what I mean is a lower to high ratio to the others. I don't mean you don't have any or it's very, very high, just an interplay between the two. So if there's a slightly different balance between the two of them, this is why it'd be like this, right? Low estrogen. By the way, either one of these is not much fun. Symptoms of low, in shouty voice, estrogen. Poor sleep, which impacts serotonin and melatonin balance, because we all know that estrogen promotes sleep. So it could be an impact on your sleep levels. Emotional instability. So serotonin is low, so you feel good, it's not good, which seems very unfair. So emotional instability, a lot of polar opposite. Again, I did say no fun there. Anybody else going to give me a Mexican wave? Hands up. No. Decreased libido, which would make sense if you're based on the above. Essentially, you may just be not in the mood in any way, shape, or possible. And generally, we see that not in all cases, can I just say? But again, if I commented earlier that estrogen requires body fat or cholesterol to synthesize, it wouldn't be unusual then to expect to see lower estrogen levels in a woman with a lower body fat percentage. So it would have to be quite low, very low in these circumstances. I've not as yet seen anybody go low enough for this to happen, to be honest. And you probably see poor skin and hair health as well, potentially. And yes, unsurprisingly, some women will report a loss of motivation, but that's not surprising considering you might not be sleeping, you're quite emotionally unstable, you're not in the mood, and your partner's not happy, and you're stressed about it as well, and your hair and skin ain't feeling good. So it's not surprising that you might not be feeling like you want to be doing much. And again, it impacts your cholesterol levels as well. So then, the opposite, high estrogen, excessive menstrual bleeding and clotting. Clotting, do love that word. Say that to a male and see what happens. I had a clot earlier. Just for fun. Just see what happens. I once went to a seminar a weekend and a woman gave something like this simile and said the word clotting, and there was about 30 males in the room. You could literally hear it. You could hear the facial reactions happening, and even she was laughing in the front going, I wish you guys could see your faces because you're dying right now. That is correct though. Again, going back to Hafsa's question, if you have a high estrogen level, it wouldn't be surprising to have a high level of bleeding and also then clotting with it, which would come hand in hand. Headaches and migraines would be quite common. Alongside that, we can't win either way. Emotional disruption, right? So high serotonin receptor increase, so it's waiting for, come on, give me it, and not getting any of the happy hormones. So it's literally like this is where I say the balance is really important, because you low when you're unhappy, high when you're unhappy. See how estrogen just messes with us in a big style. This one is an interesting one. So gallbladder dysfunction. So essentially you're not clearing out cholesterol. So there's the high cholesterol levels in biles. And it's quite common to see women with high estrogen levels over a long period of time to have their gallbladders removed because they can no longer handle that. And actually, having worked with quite a few female clients, I have actually seen that 3 or 4 times actually. So it does happen. You may come across some thyroid dysfunction. So if any of you watching or you know anybody with thyroid issues, you know that what T3 means, but basically there's not much conversion for your metabolism. So high estrogen over a long period of time can impact the thyroid function as well. And also has a correlation towards PCOS and endometriosis and low fertility, okay? So yeah, just not winning either way, are we really, when it comes to estrogen? And this one is, they're going to make some points on this as well, which is quite interesting. Estrogen in the liver. So basically the liver metabolizes estrogen and basically you excretes it through urine and poo. Again, I was being polite when I said stools, let's just say poo and pee. We poo and pee it out, okay? So it's really important to, and this might sound like when we talk about the gallbladder as well, to be drinking water, right? And to ensure that your detoxification is happening, just for everything in life really, but essentially if you know you're somebody that struggles with high estrogen levels, like you have high bleeding levels at period, this is good for you to know, because increasing your water intake will really help. And it's all, if it's poo and pee, the other hand you've got to have is high fiber. So again, if you're again someone who experiences migraines or very heavy periods, having a good dietary fiber will help you actually get that out of your system. What you want to do is remove the excess. So going back to a couple of slides earlier, the more you have, the more you're going to feel it, guys. So pee and poo means water and fiber, right? Get it moving. So essentially, if we also have somebody with a weakened liver function, as I said, if nothing's being detoxified, you'll end up with more estrogen being left in the body, which is already, of the two, I don't know which is better or worse, really, if you think about it, low or high estrogen. Probably high from speaking to women, because they really feel that. Really, the migraines can take a woman out for some time. So just as an overview, going back to that cycle again, so the cycle of your hormones, so again, there's a balance between the two. If you split that in half, right, you can see how they both kind of balance with each other. Both of those signaling hormones from the brain, so the blue and the purple, both work in unison together. And similarly with estrogen and progesterone, you see how they actually match and follow each other. And again, estrogen is used to grow cells and progesterone helps to mature and causes the lining to thicken, right? So that was all that. Nutrition, right? Nutrition, you may ask. I love this. I love this. It's an ice cream cone for a uterus. I mean, if I was going to find something that demonstrated food, I don't know if I could find anything else more appropriate. I mean, I think there's some Rolos. I think there's some candy canes. I think I pretty much covered it all, which is pretty nice, right? I think I did quite well there. All right, let's get into it. So we're going to be covering what happens in the first half of the cycle, what happens in the second half of the cycle, and why we love carbs. Nazreen's got a hand up. Nazreen, what's up? Still need to work out how to get back to the handhold. There it is. I just made it very big box. See, I'm trying to get used to technology, ladies. I've got to watch you on or anything, which I am in about 5 days. And I'll tell you how you can tell that as well, see. Right. Everyone else still with me? I know I've got through a lot of information, which might make you feel like your brain hurts. Please put your hands up if you're still with me. Layla was in there quite quickly. Anybody else still with me? Hands up, ladies, please. Let me know you're still with me. Let me know you're still there. Okay, right. I'm going to ask my little, some of them, some are not. Hey, come on. Okay, right. First question, I'm going to ask you to raise your hand. Don't raise your hand yet. Don't get worried. So far, has any of you learned something you didn't know before and or you find valuable? Let me know by raising your hand. Yes, 2 people did. Yay! That makes me feel good. Oh, 3, 4, 5. Ha, ha, ha. Someone went yes, no. Yeah, no, changed my mind. I was in them, I'm out. Okay, I'll take that. I'll take that as an okay. Right, good. Okay, let's get into the nutrition side of it then, because people are like this. But why? Why do I love the carbs so much? Why is it that I want it even, but some people are like, I quite like that picture, but at the same time, I kind of want to eat it all, everything that's in the picture at the same time. So let's get into what happens. So the follicular, so I talked about the first half, or the section where when the follicle is selected, right, to be matured and released. So in the first half, I'm going to pretty much call it now, guys, that is probably the better half of your cycle. Most women do say the same, the first half, when it comes to food and nutrition. Generally speaking, hunger falls, right? So you don't feel as hungry. So again, I've been politically correct when I did this slide into menses, because that's the technical word. To just say period, shall we? While you're bleeding, let's just get down into it. Let's get into the nitty gritty. While you're bleeding, your hunger falls off. You generally have a lower basal metabolic rate, and by that I mean you generally require less calories, so you don't have that burning desire. You're not hungry all the time. You just kind of like, for a lot of women, they'll say, do you know what, I was really hungry, and then it's gone. And that's exactly what happens, and that's generally a very common trend. And this is the theory. It's a theory. Look, it doesn't mean it's true. The theory is, it was due to the need to mate and not hunt and gather. So essentially, women were in that stage where they were getting ready in that first like 10 days again. So essentially there was no need for them to go out and eat because they'd already etc. or not got pregnant and then gone back into the cycle. Theory, who knows? God knows what it is today. Answers on a postcard. You can put it in the chat box if you know what your theory is, why that you're hung in modern day life, what that would mean. Who knows, right? And it lowers again even more right before ovulation, so between day 12 and 14, right in the middle of the cycle. So it gets lower, then it goes lower again. So in terms of your food choices, I would say most of you would say actually you're pretty like on point, right? You'd feel you're on top of your nutrition, you're probably planning and prepping, you're probably getting everything done, pretty much on point, right? I think that's kind of standard for most people, most women, specific, most women in the first 2 weeks of the cycle, they're pretty much on top of it. So then what the heck happens? So I love this picture. I feel that. It's literally the fact that she just cares not. And I think that's all pretty much, before I even get into the points of this, we all know what that actually means, how we're feeling. So the second half of the cycle increase again. So when I saw, we did the pictures of the lines, it's a mirror of the first half, right? I told you women's bodies are so freaking amazing, right? We're so clever when you think about it. Everything's a match. Everything's a match to one half and the other. So it's entirely opposite of the first slide or your first 2 weeks. So your increased hunger mirrors progesterone levels during the cycle. So as your progesterone levels increase, your hunger levels increase with it. So again, matches everything in the cycle like a perfect mirror. It's basically catabolic in nature and increases metabolism. So what that basically means is it makes you feel hungry and actually need more calories, right? I'm going to say that, but I'm wording my words carefully here. Nobody's like this, oh God, that means I can eat. Yes, it does. Your body does need a little bit more calories. I don't know how much that gets translated out as something else. And what I've done here is just included in, we have a little temperature gauge here. It's very basic, as we see. So you've got the days across the bottom. That line is essentially your body temperature. You see, as you come to ovulation, it's pretty low, but then starts to peak up with progesterone. So essentially your body temperature starts to rise as well, which is another sign that essentially your metabolism is starting to increase a little bit. And again, we've got that second picture where you can just see where the lining's increasing as well, and where you had the period at the beginning of the cycle, right? And how it goes back up. So again, your body temperature and hunger levels will actually increase with it. So why then? Why the carbs? Look at her. Okay, let's just ask a question. Hands up, who has ever felt like that woman? I'm gonna put both hands up and I'm gonna try and get a foot in as well. Oh, those hands went up quick. Of all the attendees, all 14. Yes, Helen, I'm there. Yeah, who has not felt like that woman? I mean, look at her. She's just like this. Look at her face. She's like, I want you. Come to me. She's not even looking at the salad. She don't even care. I mean, I don't even know what's at the bottom of that salad. It looks like a random huge pepper. Who cares? No one cares about the salad at this point in time. All we care about is that. Although I think she's already ate a bit. I feel like there's a bit of the cupcake missing, so I don't think she should look too guilty. She's already got in there. So why the carbs? Why the carbs? Start with estrogen. Estrogen, right? So estrogen, so the first half of your cycle where hunger is lower, promotes insulin sensitivity. So essentially the uptake of sugar from blood. Better capacity for glycogen carb storage. So it promotes glucose uptake. So essentially anything that you don't use in terms of carbohydrates. So if you eat a little bit more carbs in the first half of your cycle, because of estrogen, you're able to store that more as fuel for later on than anything else. So you're a little bit more efficient in doing that. And guess what? Progesterone does the opposite of all of the above. So your insulin sensitivity drops. You have a poorer ability to actually store carbohydrates as fuel, which potentially means if you're overeating, you may really struggle with maintaining weight, etc. And essentially, your cells are not absorbing as much of the carbohydrates into your blood sugars. That means that essentially it's not left over and you're not actually burning as much fuel. So your body's asking for more. So your body temperature has raised, your basal metabolic rate is raised. So your body is asking you for more calories, and yet you're not processing as efficiently or storing as efficiently. So your body keeps telling you to absorb more. Putting it, again, as simply as possible. So that's why carbs, right? Without getting into even more scientific shenanigans, right? In a very basic level, you just want carbs because you want the sugar, because your body isn't as efficient as uptaking it or storing it as fuel. So you're still trying to top off a tank when you've got a hole in the bottom of your bucket, essentially. That's the only way I can really describe it. So then, well, that's food, right? So far, hormones, all that stuff with the pictures. Then we went through the food, why the carbs, the woman, and where's the other woman? We like her as well. We like both of those women because we both have been there. All of us have been there, especially that one. All right, so training, right? I don't know what we're doing on time. What are we doing on time? Flow neck, right? I will get this done in the hour, promise. Training. Now, training is an interesting one, and this, I would say this is very specific to different women as well. So training is very specific to the woman, because so many women will report different things. Now there are some commonalities, I will say. It's not the true and tested case for all of them. So I'm going to go, when is it best to train? What happens and why? When do you find it harder? Okay. So essentially in the follicular stage, for the first 2 weeks of your cycle, so the first 2 weeks of your cycle, look at her, she's loving life. I mean, she looks like she's really loving life. She's like, I am on it. Now, if you think about, again, how things match inside our bodies and how there's like a perfect mirror, a yin or a yang, and we think about food in the first 2 weeks being pretty cushy and our body's being very efficient, and the second half being a mirror of that. It might not come as a surprise then to know that estrogen, again, just to repeat, estrogen at this point is at its highest, right? So all those, some of the things that's really helpful to us happening, so basically fuel burning, etc. Performance then, in no surprise, is high, and recovery is high as well. So you don't feel as knackered after training, as knackered, depending on how frustrated I am when I see you come in. But you might still feel it, regardless. Daksha, raise your hand if you felt it. So performance and recovery are high, which is great, and means you can train harder, right? Basically, this, lots of words again, essentially, you can process more oxygen. So you're able to breathe and absorb more oxygen into your bloodstream. You're more efficient at doing that before you burn out, basically. So all things are working in perfect harmony. And your energy expenditure is greater. Actually, this is an interesting one. So if any of you guys want to see this is true with you, your trends, you generally find energy expenditure is greater per training session. And again, if your sleep is good, your food is good, you're able to store and use your energy efficiently, and you can perform a recovery at your highest. It's no surprise then that you're able to perform better, essentially. And there's lower risk of any kind of muscle protein breakdown, because everything's really working to keep you as efficient as possible. So then let's get into the fun half. This is like literally like fun half, not so fun half, right? So who else has felt like her? Look at her. She is down. Nasreen's there. Oh, we got a response out of that one. Hands up who's felt like her. Yeah, look at her. She looks like someone who's gone too heavy on that. Oh, I'm gonna go off on the speed, and then just floored. Yeah, that is the second half of the cycle. So this is where progesterone is high. So your mirror to your estrogen. So that second peak in the second half. Your strength and coordination is lowered. Anybody ever, right, let's lower the hands, because this is me. Anybody get extremely clumsy around this period of time? Because I could literally walk into a wall if it was the only thing in the entire space. I could literally, I got a response as well. Yeah, I would literally just walk up. There's a doorway. It's a double doorway. There's nobody in sight. There isn't anything coming, and I still walk into the frame. I don't even understand how that's, and this is someone who works with very heavy weights on a daily basis. It's not a good career choice if you're in this stage, because I get it very bad. So there might be one dumbbell in the middle of the entire gym and I trip over it. There isn't any benches, there isn't any people, I will just fall over it because strength and coordination is lowered, right? So generally speaking, I would say, and this is again, this is a general speak. A lot of women will say probably from ovulation, from day 14, kind of starts to go into a downward spiral. Sounds intense, but can't reverse though. It becomes more difficult to breathe. It might feel get out of breath a little bit easier, especially if you're doing like the Met classes, the boot camp. You might feel like, oh, I was all right last week. Why do I feel like I can't do it? Just kind of burning out a lot quicker when it comes to breathing as well. And essentially, when I say lactate, it's like when you get burning in your muscles, you might find that threshold increases. So actually you feel it more, essentially. And with that as well, if we're saying that recovery is a lot higher with estrogen, it stands to reason that recovery ain't so great in the second half, right? So it's literally a mirror for mirror. Now, before I go on, what does that mean in terms of training? In terms of training, it's a bit like the food. You could, for some, depending on the woman, right? Now, you can mix and match, I think, depending on your levels. Because remember, I'm talking about the general female population. Now, if I take that generalization, basically you do strength in the first half. You want to maybe come off the intensity and the volume just after ovulation in that last couple of weeks before you're due to bleed, and maybe look at more cardio or lesser weights and more reps. So you keep up the amount of work you're doing, just lessen down how much you're basically lifting. So that would be a very, very big generalization. And remember though, how you feel it would be based on your levels of both of those. So some of you be like, actually, none of this kind of seems, I'm generally recovering all the way through. Then you might find your estrogen levels match different progesterone, and vice versa. Some of you are like, well, I feel like death. I'm like straight on ovulation. Well, yeah, it could be that maybe your progesterone levels come a little bit earlier. So again, training can be mixed and matched to your individuality. And it would say that there is something, we have explored that actually at UFit before. We have actually done that before, and it is quite effective. Certainly for women who do have like a high peak and trough, it just makes sense to do that with their training as well, so coordinate it with them. So your months and trends. So quite a look at all that. I even got the pill packet in there so you can see how 28 days got created from the badness of nothing. Yeah, I also have no idea why there was a rose. I don't know if that's meant to signify something. Maybe somebody knows, but there you go. I use the picture. So Y-track and water, right? Because these are trends. So Y-track and what to track with. So Y-track. Also, look, I found the pictures I could, guys. Hi, I'm a uterus. Of course you are. I'm here to ruin your life. I love that. This is like your cycle. Hey, I'm happy for the first like 2 weeks. Now I'm like, I don't know, something's going on. Now this is the second half. I'm a bit grumpy. Wow, I'm grumpy. Oh, I'm done. No, I'm not. Everybody else get that. I don't do. It's like it goes through. It's like period's finished. I lied. I'm back. So Y-track, not purely for that reason, although it's quite important to know what's happening with your body and your trends. Those are like, yeah, I see all the time. Yeah, it's horrible, isn't it? Removing the guesswork, right? Removing the guesswork. Again, I've tracked mine now for 2013. I think I've still got. And I'll go into what I track mine on. It means that though, if there's some, I might get concerned. I might get concerned and think if myself, oh, I'm really late. I mean, I can usually rule out I'm pregnant, let's be honest. Hasn't really ever come to plan. I mean, I was really late one time and I imagine there's something like the second coming of a Messiah was happening. However, it's not usually that, right? For me, at least. However, being able to know where your trends are and see if that's likely, because you may have 3 months at 29 days and then 1 month at 30 or 32, and it goes back to that cycle. So it's absolutely, if just going back to the top of this, if you are someone who's really irregular at the moment, it's really great actually to go back to an app if you haven't started to use one, so you can trend it over a period of time and see if actually what is happening in the moment is actually something for you to look at a little bit more or just to be aware of, right? So you're removing the guesswork. So you're not making a guess that something's wrong or guessing like me, it might be the second Messiah. I've been right so far. Again, so work out your trends. So work out your own body and work out if it's on point or not. explain your moods. Now I have not, and I'm not going to talk about PMT in a mass amount of time, because it's like the trends in terms of high-low estrogen are there. Progesterone, you know, I haven't gone into it. I've talked about it before. Progesterone has its own pitfalls. Progesterone is which I'm going to go into water in a minute. Progesterone is one that makes you feel like a blobby mess as well. So all in, let's be honest, if you're not sleeping, you're not feeling so great, etc. We all know we get moody. I mean, unless somebody says that they never get moody, in which case I'm so jealous, I can't believe. I cannot believe. Is it does explain your moods. So being able to track will also help you to understand. Certainly if you've not been paying attention and think, right, oh God, why am I so moody? Go to a tracker, have a look and go, oh, actually, I'm not losing my mind. I'm not crackers. It's okay. I've got a hormonal shift going on. And that's the thing to remember when I'm going through this, ladies, for you, is that, yes, I've gone a bit scientific on it. I know it's a lot. Yes, it's something I'm quite passionate about. God only knows why, for all personal reasons, right? It's really great to know that, because by knowing your own body and explaining your moods and trends, you can reassure yourself actually that there's nothing wrong with you, because there isn't. It's actually a quite natural process. I'm sure I hope I've shown you there's a natural Rex and wave with everything that's going on inside, but it's really to explain your moods to yourself as well, as much as you're not going crazy. And also, like I talked about, it's plan for training and energy. Like if you know that you're likely to feel low in energy and not feel like a massive leg day session right before you're due on, then why plan it, right? Why plan to feel even crappier? There's no need to. So it's good to track it for those reasons as well. And also, again, with the food, explain what will be happening with carb cravings. If suddenly you're ravaged for carbs, going to where you're tracking it will help you understand and go, okay, it's not just because I really want chocolate, although I do. I can actually say, well, this is my hormones. So again, knowledge is power. I'm not saying that, actually I am actually with a lot of women I work with. Once I really explain this in depth and really start to hit home, do I see behaviors change? Yes, because they start to understand this. It's not a choice to crave carbs. No, how much you choose to eat of it though, it's better for you to understand it if you know your trends, because then you can make that choice with knowledge, right? So with that trend, we also see the water trend. Now, I don't think I was very good on the animations on this. Being this is the first time I've done a PowerPoint in about, I don't know, 15 years. So I apologize. I did try and get Sam's help. I don't think we got it sorted. So it's going to pop up in a big thing, right? Ta-da! There it is. I said it was going to pop up in a big thing. I wasn't wrong. Okay, so I've broken it down over 4 weeks, right? 4 stages. I think that was the easiest thing to do, right? So there's actually 4 weeks where your water shifts, right? Very early on, all right? First 7 days. So early part of your 4 weeks. Again, we know estrogen is really high because it's building, right? So it's building, and you've got your follicles being stimulated, you've got FSH being stimulated. Your water retention is low, right? So your weight, your overall body weight will be the lowest. So first week here, first line, water is low retention, lowest weight. We then go into where you're getting into ovulation. So at ovulation, so later half, so let's say the second week, you've still got estrogen, but there's a little bit of the second, like the luteinizing hormone coming in now, which means there's a little bit of an increase of water. Again, that varies from woman to woman. I have got one client who goes up like a rocket by like 2 kilos or something insane every month at ovulation. She's had it checked out medically, etc. That actually happens, right? So we know when she's ovulating by a water increase. And if you're tracking your trends with your water as well, it is possible to see that along with body temperature changes. So you see a small increase, which means that when you get on the scales, you may see a slightly higher weight. Again, due to that change. Again, varies from woman to woman. So, you know, early luteal, so third week of the cycle. We switch from estrogen now because we're on to progesterone, which is maturing everything. We see a small decrease in water retention again, right? And then we see the slightly lower water. So again, it's like there's a mirror going on, like everything mirrors each other. And then the last week, so right before your period, we see the late luteal, progesterone is most dominant, water retention is high, and your weight, I'm saying this, not body fat, your overall weight is at its highest, right? So again, we go low, slightly high, slightly lower, heaviest. So again, everything kind of matches and mirrors all the way through, and that includes your water. So the great thing is, if you're tracking all of this, you will also know that if you go on the scales, you can explain everything that's happening and actually reassure yourself. It wasn't you had an extra slice of toast yesterday. It's because actually something's happening with your hormones, and it means that actually you can alleviate some of that panic and not worrying that something's gone wrong or something's not happening as it should do. It's just doing, everything's happening in your body as it should do. So almost there, guys. What time is it? Wowzers, yeah, we're gonna get it done. You guys are hanging in there. I love you guys hanging in. Woo! So what to track with? What to track with? I've used a couple of apps over the years. Oh, look at her. She's like, what do I track with? What do I track with, Helen? So this is the one I use. So this is, she says, which one is this? Is Glue or Flow? Having a moment. I tell you, because I've got it right here. I will tell you, it is Flow. So I have my Flow here. Here's my Flow. And it's going to be back. Oh, look, you can't see it, I don't think. Essentially, I've got 4 days. Got 4 days, and I've got, as I said, I can see my trends for a few years on here, which is great because I can, again, as I said, I can go back and check everything. There's also something called Clue, which I have used before. I kind of like the diary on this one though, because I can see it far ahead by like 3 or 4 months. And I still haven't learned not to book a holiday when I'm due on, because I seem to do that automatically. Somehow I have a gift for it. So it doesn't really be surprising then that I'm going away this weekend because I'm due on. Like, who knew? It just happens. Makes Bath die, but every time I book time off, it always happens. And then the other way to do it, I think that I've worked with clients that still do it, and it is still quite successful, is I'm going to use the word old-fashioned way of pen to paper or calendar. Calendar still works. I still have a client who just marks it in a work calendar when she knows she's due on. Do I think it's as effective to balance everything else through the month? No, probably not. If I'm honest, unless you've got someone who's really, really anal about it and actually writes down all their symptoms as well through the month on the diary, is not quite as good. Dax is saying that she uses P Tracker, it does the job, which is good. I think if you at least know when you are, like how many days in and out, hopefully from some of the stuff I've just talked about today, that will really help you know where you're at with it. Questions. Questions, anyone? There's so much I just got through. Got any questions? Fire them at me. Literally, give me them, because I can give you as much time as you want now, because I ain't got nothing else on other than talk about periods all day long and all the fallopian tubes and stuff like that. I can talk about it all day long. So if anybody's got any questions, now is the time to give them to me, because I'm quite happy to spend some time going through it. And if you think of something afterwards as well, you think, oh, I didn't get to cover that, then send me slide in my DMs. So Sage uses P Tracker too. I need to look at that. It's quite a new one. I bloated ovulation in period time, quite frustrating. Yeah, and that's good to know, Sage. With some of the water stuff I talked about, that a lot of women associate it only with being due on their period. There is a little bit around ovulation. So some women will come down in between. Again, I have another client who just actually bloats at ovulation and doesn't come back down. So for her month is literally split in two from how her body feels, which is actually quite challenging for her when it comes to weight loss or fat loss goal, because a lot of the readings are masked by that. How do you manage cravings in the second half? Oh, Bev, good question. Now, I've trialed this successfully with a handful of clients, only a handful of clients, because it requires you to be very on top of your cycle, as in not guessworking. So you're removing the guesswork to know where to start implementing this tactic, right? I'm using the word tactic because it is short-lived, and it doesn't always have a huge success rate over a number of months because it requires attention to detail. So what I've done before and does work is that with a female that knows that she's around about anything from 7 to 9 days out, I'll usually trial increasing their carbs by a small amount. Now, when I mean carbs, I don't mean the stuff that we really want, which is chocolate and ice cream and stuff like that. I'm talking about a couple of tablespoons, and only a couple of tablespoons more of rice, or a carb that is, or oats or something like that, which has a slow release, like most women, you know, and me included. Am I going to do that every month? Probably not, if I'm not tracking like really anally, depending on how hard the cravings are. Does it take the edge off? Yes, because essentially what you're doing is you're storing more glycogen or carbohydrates into your body before you get to the stage where you're no longer able to store it efficiently. So basically you're fueling yourself ahead of time, right? So you're putting more energy into your body so you don't crave as much energy after. And that's why it takes some attention to detail. I've seen it work for maybe, I had a couple of clients manage it for a couple of months and then kind of come on and off it. I had one client who did it successfully for 6 or 7 months, and she found it really, really helped. Like her first month, she thought it was a miracle. She was like, I had none at all. And I was like, wow, cool. So somebody said water. Should we drink more water in the second half? No, I think you even it all out, Sedge. I think if you're having an adequate amount of water, that's okay. I think an adequate amount of water to excrete estrogen when you're clearing out after ovulation, as long as you are drinking liquid of a variety, I don't think you have to drink more. No, not necessarily. No, I wouldn't say. I don't think personally, I've not trialed it with any female, and then I don't think I particularly had to, because we usually install it as a habit in the nutritional side of things. So it hasn't necessarily impacted their cycle. If anything, going back to some of the gallbladder stuff though, with a woman who has really high and elevated estrogen for a long period of time, actually the main thing is to just get water into the habit all month round, regardless of when it's clearing out estrogen, because of the impact on the gallbladder. So yeah, I don't think it's okay. I think however you do it is fine. God, I was like that. I should have said this. Yeah, Serge, it's 6 litres a day. I'll meet you in the toilet. You need to be working from there. It's true. You're laughing now. You won't make me like this. I'm waddling to the toilet every 5 minutes. Anybody else got any questions? I sang it. I sang it even. Questions. Like I said though, if I'm just going to give you, because I'm like this, I can't type fast enough. I'm going to give you 1 more minute, or 2 more minutes. I'm very generous. If anybody thinks of something afterwards, again, like I said earlier, if you think of it and go, or you ponder it afterwards and go, thinking about that question, I should have answered, then message me or catch up with me. And if I don't know the answer, I'll be honest with you. Like, you know, up front, I'm not endocrinologist, isn't that called? I'm just very interested in this, as I said, for personal reasons, because I've had my own issues. You saw the picture at the beginning. Should we go back to that picture just because it's quite funny? Blah, 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 blah. Let's get her back up, because that was not a fun time for my periods. Where is she? There she is. Ta-da! So that was a very unhappy time in terms of cycle and period, because of my body fat levels, certainly. So for my own personal interest, that's why I spent a lot of time researching this and going over it and over it again as studies come out differently over years, because once you have a personal impact, and some of you on this I know have had as well, if you are lost because you don't actually know what's going on inside your body and it doesn't make any sense, you just know that you bleed once a month, and why it's heavy or light, or why it doesn't come, or what happens if you don't really know, if you have no idea, that's where it can be quite hard. So Nazreen, does what you eat and how you work out do an effect on your bleeding? No, it doesn't, Nazreen. It's my gut answer. Oh, okay. Let me take a step back. Does what you eat have an effect on your bleeding? Yes. Okay. I'm gonna make a. Okay, let's think about it. If you are not eating, if you're eating very highly processed foods, a lot of junk food, etc., on a regular basis, I'm talking about 2 to 3, 4 times a week, every week, do I think on average that someone has more problems with their cycle? in terms of heaviness of what I've worked with, yes, again, I'm not a doctor or GP, I'm just saying what I've found working with women. Do I think that how they eat throughout the month has an impact on what happens when they bleed in terms of it's heavy or not? Yes, over a period of time. As if I'm eating very highly processed, high fatty food, I would expect to have very heavy periods because I would be having very low fibrous food. Generally speaking, I won't be having very minimal vegetables, if any at all, because I'd be eating highly processed foods that wouldn't have it. So I would have an elevated estrogen level, which would mean that I was not peeing and pooing out, because I'm probably also having fizzy drinks if I'm going to an extreme, which means that I will constantly be building my period. And so when it does eventually come out, it will be very heavy. So how you work out have effect on your bleeding? No. Not unless you're kind of like, I don't know, breakdancing in the middle of it without wearing anything. That would probably impact it a fair bit. But yeah, no, so anything else during the month though is absolutely okay. Right, I think I'm going to quiet it down. I think we've covered it all at this point. Thank you for all coming. I'm giving you a virtual, can't do it, obviously. I could even do it in person, but I'm giving you a virtual one for coming along to this and appreciating that I once wore a dress and wore and carrying a handbag, as Kushbu said, the size of a laptop. And that's a before and after shot. Before I wouldn't have carried it. Now I will. Thank you all for coming. Enjoy the rest of your evenings, and I will see you soon. Take care.